folks, thanks for joining me today. So I've had an awful lot of comments and questions about the fine lining brush that I use in my tutorials. And I don't buy them anywhere, I actually make them. So I use my old brushes that aren't really good for anything else anymore. And I just separate the bristles by 90% and 10%. I'm going to keep that 10% and that will end up being my brush. So the other 90% of the bristles I just trim off like it's getting a haircut. So I just trim it off as close as I can to the metal part of the paintbrush. And then I'm left with this little tiny tuft of fur, I guess, on the end. And that's how I make my brushes. So I'm going to show you three different ones. So this is the first one. And this is the next one. So you can see that it's been used quite a bit. The bristles are all frayed and separated. And yeah, it's had a better life at one time. So it's now time to give it new life. So again, I'm sorry that I'm kind of off screen there, but I just separate 10% and 90%. It doesn't have to be exact. I just sort of go by eye and cut the excess off, and then I end up with this really fine kind of tipped brush for doing all of my outlining and things like that. So this is the third one, and it's become quite spread apart, and it holds a lot of paint and it's hard to do anything with it. So it's a great candidate for becoming a fine lining brush. So again, I just separate it by eye, give it a little haircut as close as I can get to the metal, and then there you have it. It's a little bit of a fine brush, and then I'm going to show you what I do next with them. So that's just another close-up for you to show you after I dumped it into some water. This is hot water. So it's just hot water out of my tap. I don't boil it or anything like that. It's just hot water, and I just put the paintbrush in and I just let it sit. So I'm putting all three in there and I let it sit overnight. And this is what gives the curve to the brush. So here we are next day, and I pull them out, and look, now I've got like a little curve on it. And they work so great for doing outlining, and if you want to do lettering or things like that, they work amazing. And that's how I make my brushes. So now I'm going to show you how to use them or put them into action. So this is the first one that I did. So it's a very fine line that I can do, very little paint, but I can also load up the brush with a lot of paint like that. And with more pressure, I can get a thicker line. And it usually tapers off at the end. But they're just that you can do so much with them once they've gotten to this size. So here's the second brush that I did, and it's a fine line. Now this one is going to probably go back into the water for another warm bath overnight, because I noticed that some of the bristles did spread apart. Very easy fix, you just put it back in the water. But this one is a good one for maybe the thicker paint to do a thicker line. And this is the last one that I did. So again, this one, very fine line, has very little paint that's on there, but it's fresh paint out of the bottle, so it spreads nice and easy. And then here's a little bit thicker on it. So there's not as many bristles on this one that I left. So it has a little bit, it's not as thick. Then this is I've talked about in some of my tutorials, where you just add a little bit of water if you want that paint to spread a little bit easier. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So all I do is I dip my paintbrush into the water, and I let it drip into the paint that I'm using. So for example, this is my black paint. And look at that. Like it curves so nice and easy, nice sharp lines. It's really, really nice. So that was the first brush. This is the second brush. And check this out. It's like calligraphy. So I can do thin lines and thicker lines all in one brush stroke. And it all depends on how much water's in it, the thickness of your fine lining brush, and the pressure that you apply when you're putting it on whatever medium that you're painting on. And then this is the third one. And it just amazing. I love how these worked, and this is what I do. I don't throw my brushes out. I keep them and reuse them, and this is how I recycle. So I hope you give it a try. I hope you like it. And remember, folks, life is what you make it, so get creative.